welcome to our empowerment series, episode 3. Like wherever you are tonight, I want you to get ready to be empowered. I want you to get ready to be blessed. And Isaiah 33 verse 6 says that wisdom and knowledge are the stability, will be the stability of our times. The fear of God is treasure. And the Bible says in 1 Chronicles chapter 12 verse 32 that the sons of Issachar had understanding of the times and to know what Israel ought to do. Their chiefs were 200 and their brethren were at their command. All of us know that in the last few months, our world has been ravaged with the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, and everyone is challenged. All the systems of the world is being challenged. And I believe that we never expected to be here. But however, I believe that this is also a time for believers to know how to position themselves. And us in Open Heavens Temple, the month of May has been a month we use for empowerment for people to grow very well in their business, their career, their life path. And tonight we are very, very, very blessed to have one of Ghana's young budding luminaries who will be taking us through how to set up a sustainable business, what you must know. I believe that every Christian must have multiple streams of income, which we did in the first episode. And if you're going to have a multiple stream of income, it's not you doing the roadside business kind of thing, a suitcase kind of business, but you must be able to go through the principles and how to establish a very sustainable business in order that when you are not even there, the business can outlive you. It has been discovered that businesses in Africa don't last over 50 years or one generation. But I believe that God is giving us wisdom in this season and ideas in this season that whatever we start today will last as far beyond our generation. We must be generational thinkers. So tonight, I'm very privileged to have a young man who I admire so much, Bobby Banson. And I'll be introducing him. The amazing thing we have is that Bobby Banson is a member of our church. He's a member of the Open Heavens Temple. And we are privileged to have Bobby Banson tonight. Bobby Banson has been described as a dynamic, focused, and result-oriented legal practitioner. He was educated at the Ghana School of Law, where he graduated as the best student in the law of taxation. He attended courses in the Harvard University and has LLM in international business law from the University of Brussels. He is a founding partner of Robert Smith and Adelaide Law, a boutique law firm which operates from Accra but has international alliances with firms across the group. In the course of his practice, Bobby has provided legal services to multinational local companies in the area of tax, investment advice, labor law, real estate transaction, petroleum and gas, corporate matters, and dispute resolution. He is a fellow of the prestigious Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, which is based in the United Kingdom, and has participated and spoken at various arbitration and investment conferences organized by the CIARB, SOAS, and AIL. He currently teaches at the Ghana Law School and has several articles published to his name. Tonight, Bobby, welcome to our episode 3.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to sit at the other side and share this opportunity with you.
Hallelujah. It's good. So that's a very beautiful picture on your background, a very nice abstract picture, and maybe later I'll find out what the name of the picture is. So, for us to begin tonight, we want to start, what is a company?
A company is loosely defined as an entity that is set up to carry out business objective of an individual or a group of individuals. I will try as much as possible not to use legalese, as it were, so that everybody will appreciate what we are discussing this evening.
All right, because I know that if we are going to be very technical, a lot of people will not get it, but we need the basic that we can build from there. So,
yes, sir.
How is a company different from a sole proprietor? How is a company different from a sole proprietor?
This question is very relevant because a lot of people confuse the two when they are interested, or they don't know the difference when they are interested in setting up a business entity. A company is a separate entity from the persons who own it or manage it. And so a company is deemed as an individual, it's just like a person, a human being. Then you have a company. So the company has its own life, different from that of the owner or those who manage it. But when you speak of a sole proprietor is not separate from the owner. And so in common parlance, you have the what they call the one-man shops or the small table head shops. Those are typical examples of sole proprietorship, where the business is not separate from the owner of the business. So that whatever assets the owner has is deemed to be assets of the business, and whatever losses the business has is deemed to be losses of the owner. That is sole proprietor. But with a company, it's treated as a completely different entity from that of the owner or the managers.
Interesting. So that means that if you have a company, you are very different from the company. So if I run a company, I'm different from the company. And if I have a sole proprietor, everything about the company is mine, or whatever it is mine. All right. So there's a two different. So what types of companies do we have?
We have three main types of companies. We have the limited liability company, which means that the liability of the company, not that of the owner or the shareholder. So if the company owes somebody money, it is not the debt of the owner of the company. That is the limited liability company. And then we have the unlimited liability company, which is commonly referred to as unlimited company. With unlimited company, the debt of the company is that of the owner. And so if the company, it means that it is the owner who owes money, and the assets of the owner can be taken to pay the debt of the company. Now we have another one that it's called the limited by guarantee.
Okay.
With what it's normally used for NGOs, non-governmental institutions, or charities. With limited by guarantees, the owners put a certain amount that their liability to the company cannot go beyond a certain amount. And the company cannot be profit making.
Okay.
They're limited by guarantee. That is why it's normally NGOs and charities.
Okay.
So whatever profit the company makes is not shared to shareholders.
Okay.
It goes back to the business.
All right. So if you have a limited by guarantee company, you can pay yourself, or whatever is owned goes fully back into the business. Or how do you run that, so in terms of your income or your benefits?
The profits cannot be shared to shareholders or owners like dividends.
Dividends, okay.
However, all company expenses like fees and salaries of employees or benefits, any form of emoluments apart from dividends can be paid with the company limited by guarantee.
All right. So let's continue. So what types of business, what types of companies are normally used for business purposes?
Because of the issue of the third parties that the company may be dealing with, to have certainty and assurance of the longevity of the business, the limited by liability is the most common form of businesses that are registered. It gives protection to both the owner of the business and creditors, because the limited by liability companies are very regulated by the Registrar General and the tax authorities, so that third parties trying to do businesses will find out whether your business is a limited liability or a sole proprietorship. If it's a sole proprietorship, a lot of big third party they don't want to do you because they know it's a one-man show. And tomorrow you can get up and take all the assets and run away. But if it's a limited by liability, you are required, for instance, to file your returns at the registrar general. And so there's a form of regulation of limited liability company that makes it more attractive to people that want to engage in long-term businesses.
So now I wanted to find out from you, for a simple person who want to run a business, like maybe an individual church member or somebody who wants to just run a business and run it like probably an enterprise, or want to do some import and export, or want to do production or some kind of farming or something. I want to find out what kind of business will you advise, knowing the terrain we are in, knowing what people can do, what kind of terrain what kind of business the person can set up.
Well, you can always start as a sole proprietor, depending on the nature of your business. So if you want to go into farming, or you want to start small based on the scope of your vision as an entrepreneur, you can always start as a sole proprietorship. But as the business develops and it grows, and there are more third-party interactions and dealings, you can convert your sole proprietorship into a limited liability.
Okay.
So for instance, if you want to go into the capital markets to gain access to additional market for business expansion, 99.9% of the time, investors will want to deal with limited liability companies. But it doesn't mean that you cannot start as a sole proprietor. So you can start the business as a sole proprietor. It's easier to register, has less tax implications, very little regulation, so you can maneuver to start with. But as your business and as you expand, it is advisable that you now convert from the sole proprietorship to the limited liability. So you don't completely discard the sole proprietorship. The limited liability will be set up to take over the business of the sole proprietorship. So it becomes like another stage of your business development, where you grow from being a sole proprietor maybe 2-3 years ago, and then 5 years down the line, your company would have grown to such an extent that you would have it into a limited liability to enable you have access to investments, capital markets, and third parties will be able to deal with you with that level of certainty. So you can start as a but then convert and go into limited liability.
All right. So like if you are going to have a limited liability company, then that means you're going to bring in shareholder? Are you bringing good shareholders, or what is a shareholder company for that matter?
Well, the term shareholders are used for limited liability companies. And when we say somebody is a shareholder, it means that the person owns a unit of. So shareholders are the owners of the company, and their rights, or their interest in the company is measured by the quantum of capital that they have contributed. And so, for instance, if a company is deemed to register with, let's say, 100 shares, and Reverend Xexemeku is a shareholder, he may have 50% of the shares. It means that he will have 50 shares. Okay. And then Bobby Banson is the other shareholder. I would also have 50% of the shares, and I would have 50 shares. So my interest in the company in the limited liability company is measured by my shareholding in that company. So a shareholder is an owner of a business, but his interest is measured by the number of shares that he has in the company.
Very interesting. So
what we call members or owners of the business.
Okay, thank you very much. So that means that how can you regulate your relationship between shareholders? Because sometimes you start a business, and because you don't have enough money, a shareholder comes in and brings in maybe 80%. Now you own 20%, but the whole thing is about you. You are maybe the main person behind. You are the one doing the legwork. You are the one bringing in the insight, the creativity. But because somebody has pumped money into the thing, his shares is higher than yours. How do you regulate such relationships so that there will not be conflicts and people will not pull out their investments from the business and probably leave you in the middle of the road where you are stuck?
Okay, sir. There are two documents that regulate the relationship between shareholders. The first document, which is compulsory, it's but very loose. It's compulsory, but it's very loose. It's what is now referred to as the constitution of the company. And it will interest our viewers and listeners to note that in Ghana's Companies Act, or the law that regulated our companies, was only changed in 2019. Wow. After we had one since 1963. So between 1963 and 2019, we had one law, and until just 2019, from May or June, just under a year ago, we had a new law. Now, under the new law, there's a document called the Constitution of the Company, which was previously referred to as the regulations of the company. And that regulates the relationship between the shareholders. That is a compulsory document that every company has, the regulations of the Constitution. And there's an additional document that may be prepared between the parties, which is called shareholders agreement. Now, the shareholders agreement is supposed to state the rights and the liabilities or the obligations of the shareholders. And so even though you may have majority of the shares, or may have contributed most to the capital, the shareholders agreement will limit your power and your control of the operations of the business. Or if you are the one, like you said, Pastor, that if you did the legwork all the time, we may value your legwork as what investors call sweat equity.
Sweat equity,
so
okay.
The agreement or the regulations would state that you may not have brought 10,000 cedis into the business, but your sweat equity and your legwork can be measured by that amount. So it is important that there is always the shareholders agreement and the regulations for the constitution of the company to be able to regulate the relationship between the parties.
All right. Brother Bobby, can you increase your voice a bit, because we can hear you very well. Maybe closer. Okay. That means that for you to do a limited liability company where you bring in share people, the very critical thing you need, number one, you need the constitution of the company, which is a legal document by government. Then you need the shareholders agreement. Then if there's also anything that, like I said, you are doing the legwork, the person just invested money, there's sweat equity, right? So it's a very critical thing for people to take note of and make sure that when they are bringing people on board, these documents are already provided. But where can they get these documents from in Ghana?
Okay, sir. Before I go that, I was just going to give an example. We all know the issue of Facebook, which has gone public now. Now, there's a clause in the arrangement, in the agreement, shareholders agreement, that gives the founder the ultimate control. So no matter how much he's diluted as a shareholder, that is Mark Zuckerberg, he has a casting vote over every decision that they make.
Wow.
And it is a clause they put in. So no matter how the company grows, because it is about him and it is his vision, he maintains that ultimate decision taking right in that business. Now, to the question that was asked, sir, the constitution or the regulation is issued by the registrar general when you go and incorporate your business. But the shareholders agreement must be drafted by a lawyer or by the parties if they have that. And if they draft it, they file it at the registrar general. And the contents in the shareholders agreement supersedes the content in the regulation or the constitution. Because like you rightly said, Pastor, the regulation of the constitution is a government-issued document. But the shareholders agreement is what the parties themselves have decided to bind and regulate the activities. And that supersedes the provisions in the constitution or the regulation of the company.
That means that it's very important that before anybody goes into shareholding and bringing partners on board, a legal person must be, a lawyer must be brought in, or some law, that some kind of, the thing, the constitution of the company must be really constructed by a lawyer, qualified lawyer, not somebody just writing anything, right?
Yes, it is very key. It is very key, because I will give you one instance. Generally, people assume that the number of shares you have would give you the right to vote. So, for instance, if the company has 100 shares and I have 60 of the shares, and Pastor, you have 40 of the shares. If we go for a meeting as shareholders, I have one vote and you have one vote. Even though I have 60% and you have 40%. That is what is in the regulation or the constitution issued by the government. But if you have a lawyer who will now draft shareholders agreement between the parties, the lawyer will now put in a clause that the number of shares you have will determine the number of votes you have. So there are certain nuances which a lot of businessmen take for granted from the beginning. But with the proper legal advice, the structure should be put in place so that it will minimize the effect of conflicts or disagreements when they arise.
All right. So basically, how do you register a company in Ghana? For anybody who wants to start.
Now it's going digital. Okay. So the Registrar General's Department has a website which you can go and then register the business. I must say it is not as effective as we expect it to be, but it's there and sometimes it works. To give you the assurance and certainty, you could buy the forms yourself manually from the Registrar General's Department and then fill out the forms. There are certain information that are required, and then you present the forms back to the Registrar General's Department. And then when everything is okay, they are going to issue you with a document after you have paid the right price. Okay. Now, before you can register the business, you must have certain information. The most critical information now is what is called the tax identification number, or what is referred to as the TIN.
Okay.
Every person must have a tax identification number by law before you can register a business.
Thank you very much. So how much money do I need to start capital? Do I need to register a company now?
Since 2019, when the new law came into pass, you don't need any money at all to register a company as a Ghanaian. Okay. Previously, before 2019, as a Ghanaian, you needed only 500 Ghana cedis to register a business as your stated capital. Okay. But post 2019, after the new law came into pass, you do not need any money at all. You can start the business with 1 Ghana cedi or with 1 million cedis, depending on your strength. However, for the sake of the credibility of the business, it is advised that you put a considerable sum of money, which is commensurate with the nature of business you want to engage in, so that third parties that are dealing with you will know that, you have, at least on paper, this as capital, and it shows the direction that you want to take the business. But for a sole proprietorship, you don't need any capital.
You don't need any capital. All right. So if in case I want to bring a foreigner into my business, how much capital is required if there's going to be a foreigner as a partner of my business?
Okay. Now there's a different legal regime that regulates foreigners participating in companies in Ghana. And that is regulated by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act, the GIPC Act. So depending on the nature of business, the law requires that if it is a trading business, there must be a capital of $1 million, which is very high considering the regime across the West African sub-region. Ghana's capital requirement for foreign businesses are very high. So for trading, you have a minimum capital of $1 million. For every kind of service provision, you need a minimum capital of $500,000 if it is a wholly owned foreign business. However, if it is a business between a Ghanaian and a foreigner, so that there's a joint arrangement or joint partnership, the foreigner must bring a minimum of $200,000 as his investments to the business. The Ghanaian must have a minimum of 10% per law before it will be considered as a joint business. So a Ghanaian and a foreigner cannot claim to have a joint business when the Ghanaian has less than 10%. No. If you are presenting it as a joint business, the Ghanaian with a foreigner, the Ghanaian must have 10% or more.
Okay. That means, so assuming that I'm bringing a foreigner as a joint business, if my partner is bringing $200,000, I must bring $20,000 minimum.
Minimum, exactly.
$20,000 minimum on paper, yes. But not physical.
Not physical cash.
Okay, but on
however,
paper.
If it is a business that is engaged in manufacturing,
yeah.
So you don't set up to go into farming, for instance, which is considered as, or set up a company to manufacture anything, clothing, anything. When it is manufacturing, then the government, as a policy, has waived all capital requirements for foreigners.
Oh.
So if it is a manufacturing entity, then there's no capital requirement for foreigners.
Wow.
Whether on their own or joint participation with Ghanaians.
Okay. All right. But so in the business, tell us who a director is.
A director, we know people use the word loosely. When they see others, they greet them, oh, director. But a director for a company it's a big term. If you're a director of a company, you have legal rights and you have possible liabilities. So we are in a situation where sometimes your friends will come to you and tell you, oh, I want to incorporate a company, can I make you a director? Before you start, you must be sure of what the company is involved in. Because a director is deemed to be in charge of the day-to-day, or be part of the team that is in charge of the day-to-day administration of the company. And so if the company engages in any illegality, you as a director, you have a personal liability. And you have a right to sit at the board of directors meeting and then vote and take decisions. Now there are two kinds of directors. We have the executive directors and non-executive directors. So the executive directors are like employees of the company who go to their work every day and they are there part of management. But the non-executive directors are not part of management. They come for board of directors meeting once in a month or once every quarter, and they contribute to the policy direction of the business. So a director could be executive or non-executive.
But if the director is non-executive and there's a liability, can they hold that director responsible?
No. Because you're a non-executive director, when there's a liability, all you need to indicate is that I'm not part of the day-to-day administration of the company. And so I have no role to play in the decision that led to this illegality or the act that led to this illegality as a non-executive director. So before you accept such a position, you must find out whether they want to take you as an executive director or a non-executive director. And there's even the portfolio of a managing director. Okay. The managing director is the arrowhead of the company, what the Americans call the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. In the British or the common law system, it's referred to as a managing director. Who is the ultimate alter ego, as lawyers call it, of the business. Okay. And beneath him are the board of directors, and then beneath that organogram is the management of the company.
Okay, so now I can remember that sometimes as a pastor, people are trying to register their companies and they tell you that they want you to be a director. But I think the caution is that you must be a non-executive director. Or in the company filling of the forms, you must indicate that, right? Maybe in my personal...
Yes, there is the non-executive director, yes.
Space, okay, all right. So that when something happens wrongly, you are not going to be... All right. So what's the relationship between the directors or the director and the shareholder? Now, when you are a director of the company and somebody also brings you shares in? What's the relationship then?
Okay, so the best way to explain the relationship is to cast our minds to the biblical example of Jacob and Laban.
Okay.
So Laban would be a shareholder who owned the flocks. And then Jacob would be a director who actually fed the flocks and took care of the flocks. So you would have the shareholder being the owner of the business, and the director being in charge of the day-to-day running of the business. However, the relationship between the shareholders and the directors can also be regulated by what is called a management agreement. So that the shareholders will set the performance indicators, and then the directors must meet it or they get fired by the shareholders. So the shareholders can sack the directors if they feel the directors are not meeting the performance indicators. And the shareholders appoint the directors. So the directors are accountable to the shareholders.
Okay. So can a director be a shareholder?
Yes, a director can be a shareholder, but a director need not be a shareholder.
Oh.
So the law does not make it compulsory for a director to have shares in the company.
That means that that means you don't need to be you don't need to be a shareholder to be a director. You could be poached or employed to manage the business, but you don't have shares, but you report to the shareholders.
You have shares. Okay. Yes, sir. And then whatever benefits that you'll be entitled to will be put in that management agreement, so that at the end of the year or at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, if you meet the performance indicators, then the benefits will be accrued and then you'll be entitled to receive it. That is why I drew the analogy of Jacob and Laban.
Laban, yeah. So Jacob was working for Laban and he was fleecing him and he couldn't do much about it. Now, I want to find out. Now, you have a good business plan, great business plan, but you have run out of capital. How do you bring in people to support that business financially?
Okay, so this indicates this is a means of you having a business plan and you need financiers to start.
Yeah.
There are two ways of attracting capital to your business. It could be by debt, loan, credit, or it could be by equity. So by the debt, you could have people who would tell you, okay, I want to give you a loan, I believe in your business plan, I want to give you a loan of 100,000 cedis so you could start, but I am a creditor, or what we would call sometimes as a debenture holder.
Can you go over that again?
Okay, so you would have when you want to, you have your vision or your business, and you need capital to start. There are two ways of attracting the capital. You could attract it by equity or by loan or credit. Now I want to start with the credit or loan aspect. Somebody could offer you 100,000 cedis to say that I'm giving you 100,000 cedis as loan. At the end of the month or at the end of every year, you pay me X amount until you have finished paying the loan. Such a person may be described as a debenture holder. Debenture holder.
Okay.
Debenture holder. The debenture holder or the creditor is not a shareholder in the business. So all he has done is to give you the loan. He's not interested in the day-to-day administration of the company. He has no rights to vote, nothing at all. At the end of the month, he takes his interest, or at the end of the year, he gets his money back. But if somebody is investing as an equity holder, then the person is telling you, I want shares back in the business. Now, before you accept any of these options, you must know what you carry. You must know the value of your business. So if you think that you need somebody to come in as a shareholder, it means you are giving the person part of your profits forever. So your business plan for you now may be worth 10,000 cedis on paper. But we have the people that we call angel investors. They may see your business plan and know that in the next 10 years it may be worth $10 million. And those people normally will not come to you and say, we are giving you a loan. They will come to you and tell you, we want equity. Wow. Because they see the long term.
Okay.
And if you are not careful and you just give it in because you did not value your business well, or you do not get a proper legal advice or investment advice, you may sell yourself short. So you could attract capital by doing the equity route or the loan route. But the option that you must take will depend on the nature of your business, the value that you put on your business, and the kind of relationship you want to have in the long term. Okay. So they are not easy decisions you must take.
That means that you really need to think through with probably a legal person who can help you to walk through. But assuming that I am starting a business and I see that in the next 5 years, it might be a multi-million business. But currently, I only need about $100,000 to do that. Can I risk the fact that I know that in 5 years' time, when you give me $1 million, I'm going to be a $10 million business, so that the person cannot have hold over me, but some way, somehow, I'll have an upper hand in my investment, or the person coming to control me. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yes, I understand you. So it comes back to having the shareholders agreement.
Agreement, okay.
And so when you have that approach, or you have that offer, then you must be ready to make sure that you seek the proper legal advice, so that the shareholders agreement at that stage, right from the inception, is watertight to protect your sweat equity and then the value that you have put in the business that far. We have come across situations where people have started businesses where they have done all the legwork and they needed, let's say, maybe 10,000 CDs from a friend, and they decided to give the friend half of the shares, 50%. 3-4 years, and we see this a lot with IT startups from my experience, IT businesses.
Okay.
So you see a very smart young man who has a gift with IT, apps and what have you. He needs maybe only 5,000 CDs to develop an app, to invest in it.
Yeah.
He approaches somebody who tells you, I'll give you the 5,000 CDs, but I want 50% of the shares. He really does not care. He gives him equal rights and everything. Then within 3 years, the app blows up and it becomes a $1 million app.
Wow.
But the person only gave 5,000 CDs, and then he had no idea about the product. But because you have tied yourself to him, you are locked up, and you wish you had sought proper legal advice from the beginning to be able to manage it.
That means for such a person, the person must go back to the shareholders agreement before the person proceeds.
Yes.
He must go back to the shareholders agreement to make sure. So all of you listening to me, especially with the IT, creativity, and the creative industry, be careful that you don't sell your future because of the challenge you have today. But make sure that you have a legal person coming in and helping you. And I think that, Bobby, one of the things I want to let people know is that I think people have this care about lawyers coming into their business. And something, they think that the lawyers come to charge, because there's this notion that when a person comes, he's going to take a percentage of the total amount of the thing and all that. Can you maybe dissuade people from that kind of fear, or what I can advise on that?
Well, it's not the case. I would not say there are some lawyers who have given people the reason to believe that, but I can say that on authority, having practiced this for almost 10 years now, that is, we have lots of lawyers who are empathetic towards, or have empathy towards, bright ideas and would want to help, not for gaining anything from it. And lawyers are also regulated. And so we have the bar scale of fees that regulates how we can even charge and how much we should charge. And we are required to do a certain volume of free work and free services. And so it's part of our social responsibility, it's part of our regulations, the Legal Professions Act. And so depending on how you present your case, I or my firm, if I may put it, we do a lot of pro bono cases, or we advise a lot of startups, a lot, because we we are a very young firm, not in terms of the experience with practice, but in terms of the age of the lawyers here. And so we associate with these kind of businesses and transactions. And and not only me, I know a lot of law firms that do that as well. A lot of law firms that do that. So people should not be scared to approach lawyers to seek legal advice. I believe that it's just like you weighing, should I go to the doctor because I think it's expensive and I should self-medicate in these times. In the long run, you'll be licking your wounds when you would have paid little or next to nothing to protect your interest.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you have pro bono offers you give to startups and people who need legal advice without taking everything.
Yes.
So now, very critical question now. How do you protect the goodwill of your business?
The goodwill of your business is what lawyers would call the trademark of your business. And so when you develop a reputation in a particular sector, because of the name or the logo you have used, there are procedures or there are laws that guide how to do it. Now, speaking in respect of ICGC, which is the institution we belong, if anybody in the world mentions ICGC, we associate it with this institution. Yeah. Not only International Central Gospel Church, but also the logo and what it stands for. And in the past almost 30 years, this brand has stood for a particular purpose and has built a reputation in that sector. Now, if somebody comes up tomorrow and develops ICGC mineral water, for instance, ICGC water, it is very easy for the ordinary man to assume that the water is the product of the church. And so somebody will now be taking advantage of the reputation that the church has developed over the period to monetize it. And that is the goodwill we are talking about. Now, to prevent this, you have the option of registering the name and then the logo, if you have one, at the trademarks registry. We have the trademarks registry where you can submit your name, the business name, and the logo associated with it to protect any person else from benefiting from it. Okay. So, like you have the Coca-Cola brand, which is known everywhere in the world. Nobody can register Coca-Cola anywhere in the world as a business. Because the brand has done enough to protect its goodwill by registering it as a trademark. And so when you start a business, and say, it will interest you to know that there are people who do what lawyers call squatting, like to squat. So when they see that there's a brand, let me use the word young, and the last session was about branding. So this may dovetail into it. When they see that there's a young up and coming brand in any product, what people do, and people do it in Ghana here, I've had several legal challenges in respect of that. They go to the Registrar General's department or the trademark registry and intentionally register that name if you have already not registered it. And then they sit down and wait for you to grow. Now, in 10 years' time, when you've blown up, or 5 years, and you want to now go and register it at a trademark, they will tell you somebody registered it 5 years ago, and so we cannot register it for you. And the person will never even use it for any business. But they just register it and keep it. And if you now want to register it, they will charge you thousands of dollars for nothing they have done. So there are some people in Ghana here now that they are gradually developing the skill in squatting. They look around social media and they look at the brands that are coming up, and they quickly go to the trademarks registry to register it, and it costs you next to nothing to register it. And then when the brand blows up, you go to them and they tell you, well, you must pay me $5,000 before I can release it to you. And either you pay them or you go through court, a legal battle to be able to get it back. So it is important that the moment you conceptualize your vision and want to put it into a business venture, beyond registering the company as an entity, think of protecting your goodwill. Don't wait until you have gained a reputation. Start it now, because people may be watching. And by the time you want to go and register it, somebody else would have gone ahead of you, and you'll be left with two options: either to pay them what they are asking for to take it back, or go through court to take it back.
I think I heard that story when Yahoo, the email came, and many people were registering the names of footballers that were doing the Premiership.
Yes.
So they registered them, and now when they want to use the email as their name, maybe Asamoah Yahoo.com, and the person has already said it as Asamoah, so you have to go and contact him. Maybe it's that Asamoah 1, Asamoah 2, Asamoah 3. So you have to go and pay him before he releases it to you. So I think it's a very good education we are receiving here. So when you have a brand, you have a business, you have got a logo, you must go through and register it at the registry department, and then it can be secured. I think that before we finish, Brother Bobby will give out the details of his firm, so that if you need any help, you can go and that. Now, Bobby, apart from the Registrar's General Department, do you need to register your business anywhere else?
Well, it depends on the nature of business. Some businesses require special regulation and licenses from certain state institutions. So, for instance, if you want to work as a contractor, building contractor or road contractor, after you have registered at the Registrar's General Department, you must go to the Highways Authority to get another certificate from them. And their certificate is in classes. So depending on the volume of business you want to conduct, they will issue the certificate. If you want to operate in the petroleum industry, if it's the downstream, it's regulated by the National Petroleum Authority, the NPA. So after you've registered with the Registrar's General Department, you must go to the NPA. If it's the upstream, you have to deal with the Petroleum Commission. And so different state entities are mandated to regulate specific industries. And so if your business falls under those industries, you must, beyond the Registrar General, you must go and then also register them. And the municipality that you would work from, also the municipal assemblies also issue what is called business operating permits. So they will come to you and tell you that, okay, if you are operating from this from this locality, you must register with us to give you the business operating permit. And every year you pay a certain amount so that they will give you a business operating permit to operate within that locality.
You need an office to be able to start with a business. Do you need an office?
No, you don't need. You need an office. You need to put an address on your form, but you don't need to physically have an office. Okay. And so if, for example, you can use your house where you live as the registered address. Now, fortunately, we have the Ghana Post GPS digital address system, which is a requirement. So you must have a digital address. So you can start from your home. People say, like you hear, that I started the business from my garage, from my car boot. All you need to do is to have a physical address and then put it on the registration form. But you need not own the office or rent the office. As the business grows and you have the means to rent an office, you can always change the address and then move it to a more secure place that you have rented or bought to run your business.
Okay, so Bobby, if I own a business in Ghana, but I want to also do business in the UK, what's the procedure of registering a business internationally?
Well, every jurisdiction has its own ways of incorporating business. I studied in the European system, so I have an idea how you register companies there as well. It's quite easy. It's also digitized, so you can go online and do it. And like in Ghana, you need a physical address to put there before you can register. And you need not be a resident in that jurisdiction. Speaking for England and the EU, under the EU law. And the capital required depends on the jurisdiction. But interestingly, whereas those of us in Ghana, in Africa, seeking to attract investment, we put very high capital requirements. In England, you can register a company with £1.
Wow. Wow.
And across the EU, you can register a company with €1. €1. 10 euros. And it's online. You can sit in Ghana, fill the forms, put in the address, submit it, and within 48, 72 hours, you have your business registered. as long as they can confirm your physical address.
All right. So, Paul, Bobby, there's a very important question I'm going to ask you now. How do you protect the legacy of your business and the properties you own?
It's something that a lot of us do not want to talk about, but we must talk about. You would have to.
Important. It's very important.
A good man leaves inheritance for his children.
Yes.
And the surest way to leave an inheritance for your children is to leave behind a will. Now, even if you register a company, you can leave a will where you would in your will, you state who the shares in your company should be given to. Now, you don't need to own assets to register. You don't need to be what we call a rich man to have a will. And you don't need to be old to have a will. You can have a will today. You can change it, add, subtract as you go along. So the will can be a running document. After every 5 years, after every 3 years, you can assess your life and see how many assets you have added, how many assets you have replaced, and add it, and who you want to give to and who you do not want to give to.
Okay.
And having a will done, it's not a difficult process. It should take a day or two for a lawyer to do a will for you. You can decide to do your will and not file it in the registry of the court, keep it in your house, or decide to file it in the registry of the court. The courts are now saying that a will that is filed in the court will be treated as more authentic compared to one that is not filed in the court. So it's advisable that you have a lawyer prepare, because before it is filed in the court, you must have a lawyer stamp it as the one who prepared it for you to sign. And so it's good to have a will that would show how your legacy in terms of your business, your shares in your company, and your other assets should be treated in your when you are gone. You can even decide to have in your will a deed of trust that will regulate how it is done. So it is not a complicated process. It is not a difficult process, and we should not be scared about it. We should put our hands in. We should build our ark before the rains begin. And you can, like I said, when you do a will today, it doesn't mean you cannot change it tomorrow. You can change it every time as and when, so that it becomes a fluid document that you can work with.
So I want to advise all the listeners that you must put a will together of all the assets, all the things you have. The fact that you put a will together does not mean that you are going to die tomorrow, but it's very important that you do that. Now, we have some questions from some viewers, and I want to take one from somebody in the U.S. He's Eugene Films in Dallas, U.S. He said, I live in the U.S., but I have a Ghanaian passport. Can I register a business in Ghana? And do I need additional stipulations and resident Ghanaian shareholders to run a business in Ghana? Register a business in Ghana?
No, once you have a Ghanaian passport, you can send the copy of the Ghanaian passport. You get a tax identification number as a Ghanaian, and the business should be registered for you as a Ghanaian. You need not have foreign shareholders, and you need not have resident shareholders. The law requires that you have a minimum of 2 directors for a business. One director must be a Ghanaian or must be resident in Ghana. So either you're a Ghanaian or you're a resident in Ghana, you can be a director. The company must have 2 directors, 1 secretary, and with the new law, the secretary must be a lawyer or somebody who is trained as a company secretary, and then an auditor. So these are the officers that the company must have at the time you are incorporating it. So you need not be physically present in Ghana to be able to incorporate a company. You can send your Ghanaian passport, a team will be prepared for you, and then you can have the company registered.
Okay, you have answered this question, but I want to still ask it from Mamiya Adusa. He said, can one start as a sole proprietor and progress to limited liability company?
Yes, you can start as a sole proprietor and then convert your sole proprietor business into a limited liability. And that is the advice we give to a lot of startups. That when you are starting for ease of maneuvering and tax implications, you can always start as a sole proprietor. And within 18 months, 24 months, if you think that it's time for you to grow and deal with third parties, attract external investment, then you can convert it to a limited liability.
All right. Lawyer Bobby Banson, we want to thank you very much. But before you go, we want you to probably just give us your email, your company email address, or probably your office line, so that anybody listening can contact you, so that you can help them through whatever they want to do.
I'm not allowed by my regulations to do that.
Okay.
On such platforms. Interestingly, our profession is highly regulated, but any person who wants any form of advice can leave with a message, and I would respond on their Facebook message, and I'll coordinate with Pastor, because I'm a member of the church.
The church, anyway.
November Chapel. Okay. we can take it from there.
Okay, that one we believe God for a pro bono. All right, so Lawyer Bobby Banson, thank you very much for availing yourself to speak to us today, and we are very informed on setting up a sustainable business, what we need to know. And I want to admonish everybody listening that these are very critical times, and like we shared on the first episode on having multiple streams of income, building a brand, I believe that many of you have individual things you are doing. If you are going to be very wealthy, if you are going to make money beyond what you are doing, you need to have a business and run it as such, and run it very well. And I think that tonight's presentation and discussion and conversation has been of great help to you.